The golden light of the late afternoon stretched across the edge of the savanna, turning the tall grasses into a sea of warm amber. A soft breeze rustled through scattered acacia trees, carrying the earthy smell of sun-warmed soil and distant water. Birds chirped and called to one another, their melodies threading through the gentle hum of insects hidden in the brush. The tiger family moved slowly through this quiet world, the mother tiger's paws brushing against the dry grass as she led her 3 cubs. Each cub tumbled and played, their small bodies twisting and rolling with clumsy enthusiasm, ears flicking at every new sound. The mother watched them closely, her amber eyes soft yet alert, teaching them the small lessons of the wild: how to stalk through the grass, how to pounce lightly, how to listen for danger. For a few minutes, the world felt perfect. The cubs' small growls and playful swipes echoed against the quiet of the savanna, a rhythm of life that seemed untouched by fear. One cub attempted to pounce on another, missing by inches, and fell with a soft thump. The mother purred softly, a sound of encouragement as much as reassurance, nudging the cub back to its feet with a gentle push of her nose. There was laughter in their movement, an innocence that made the air feel lighter, even in the wild. It was a moment of fragile beauty, where the dangers of the forest seemed far away, replaced by a simple dance of play and learning. But beneath the gentle sway of grass and the golden sunlight, a shadow lingered. Hidden among the dense trees that marked the savanna's border, a massive gorilla crouched low, its dark eyes fixed on the tiger family. Muscles tensed beneath thick fur. The gorilla's chest rose and fell slowly, almost in time with the gentle wind, yet every movement was deliberate. It watched, silent and patient, a predator not out of hunger but territorial instinct. Its breath was quiet but measured, a slow hiss against the faint sounds of the savanna. The cubs, unaware of the looming danger, continued their game, chasing one another in wide circles, while their mother's ears twitched at every subtle sound. She sensed it, the almost imperceptible signs that made her muscles tense and her tail flick lightly. Something was not right. A twig snapped underfoot somewhere deep in the shadow of the trees. It was a small sound, but to the mother tiger it rang sharp and urgent, like a bell in the still air. The cubs froze mid-tumble, ears flattening instinctively as their mother's gaze darted toward the forest edge. A low growl escaped her throat, soft at first, almost a warning to herself as much as to them. The wind shifted, carrying with it a scent that made her whiskers quiver, a musky, powerful odor, heavy and commanding, unlike any other animal she had smelled before. Her cubs looked up at her, sensing her sudden tension, and for the first time in their playful morning, they hesitated. Their paws no longer moved freely. Their eyes searched her face for guidance. The mother moved slowly, deliberately, her muscles coiling with cautious strength. Every step was measured, almost invisible against the tall grass, yet her presence was commanding. The cubs followed closely, instinctively mirroring her movements, ears swiveling to catch even the faintest sound. A flock of birds erupted suddenly from a nearby tree, their wings flapping against the soft light, scattering dust and leaves. The cubs jumped in surprise, their small bodies pressing against each other for comfort. But the mother did not flinch. Her gaze never left the edge of the forest. For a moment, time seemed to stretch, the golden savanna frozen in uneasy stillness. The mother's mind raced with possibilities, calculating, anticipating, readying herself for whatever might emerge from the shadows. The cubs crouched, understood the truth of the wild. Serenity was fleeting, and the world could change in the blink of an eye. The cubs pressed against her, and she pressed back, a living low, ears alert, tails twitching nervously. She had taught them to play, to explore, and to grow, but she had also taught them to respect the forest dangers. And now, that lesson was no longer theoretical. Every instinct screamed at her to protect, to shield her young, and to prepare for an encounter she could not yet fully see. The gorilla shifted slightly among the dense trees, a subtle movement that betrayed its attention. Its massive form was mostly hidden, yet the weight of its presence was undeniable. It was waiting, patient, as if testing the mother's resolve, calculating the risks, and considering the next moment. A single leaf fell from above, brushing softly against the ground, and the mother's ears twitched in perfect unison with the sound. Her cubs held their breaths, bodies frozen, eyes wide, watching the interplay of shadow and light, the tension of predator and protector. The savannah, usually alive with gentle hums and whispers, now felt suspended, every sound magnified, every movement critical. She took a step forward, signaling subtly for her cubs to stay close. They obeyed instinctively, trusting her judgment without question. The golden sunlight flickered through the acacia trees, highlighting the stripes along her back, the tense coiling of her muscles, and the attentive, vigilant stare of her amber eyes. She paused, ears swiveling to catch the faintest movement from the gorilla. The cubs pressed close, their trust evident in the way they mirrored her posture, tails entwined in nervous anticipation. Even the soft breeze seemed to hold, waiting for the first note of sound to break the fragile peace. A sudden gust rustled the grass more forcefully, and the mother's whiskers twitched as her eyes flicked toward the forest edge. Her instincts sharpened like a blade. She could feel the quiet power of the gorilla, the raw energy waiting in the shadows. The cub's playful energy had vanished, replaced by a careful, watchful stillness. The mother's tail lashed lightly, muscles coiled, eyes narrowing with an intensity that could warn or defend. The forest seemed to lean in, waiting for the inevitable. For now, no attack had come, but the warning signs were clear. Something was coming, something large and dangerous, and the mother tiger was ready to meet it head-on. As the sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows across the golden savanna, the mother tiger gave one last glance toward the forest. Her cubs huddled closer, seeking warmth and safety against her side. The gentle hum of the savanna returned, but it was no longer the same peaceful rhythm. It had become a quiet tension, a fragile pause before the storm. And in that golden light, she shielded, every muscle taut, every sense alert. The calm had not yet ended. The storm was coming. The air exploded with sound and motion. One moment, the savanna had been golden and still, the soft hum of insects and birds filling the space with quiet rhythm. The next, a thunderous roar shattered that calm. The massive gorilla burst from the shadowy edge of the forest, fists pounding the earth, muscles coiled like steel springs. Dust and dry leaves erupted into the air with each step, drifting in the sunlight like tiny golden sparks. The tiger cubs froze for a heartbeat, wide-eyed, before instinct took over. They scattered, tiny bodies weaving frantically through the tall grasses, ears flattened, tails stiff with fear. The mother tiger's roar cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding, a warning and a promise all at once. She lunged forward, powerful muscles propelling her in a perfect arc, claws extended, teeth bared. The gorilla, massive and relentless, swung its arms, pounding the dirt in an attempt to intimidate and dominate. The ground seemed to shake. Beneath their struggle, the clash of predator against predator resonating across the savanna. The cubs darted between clumps of tall grass, their small paws kicking up dust with every desperate step. One stumbled, tumbling into a shallow dip, its frightened squeal cutting through the air. The mother's eyes locked onto her fallen cub, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. The world narrowed to her child and the threat pressing down upon it. Time seemed to slow. She circled low, tail stiff, teeth bared in a calculated snarl. Every movement was deliberate, a measured dance of courage and instinct. The gorilla's dark eyes met hers, brimming with raw, territorial energy, and for a heartbeat, it felt as though the earth itself had paused. The cubs huddled near the edge of the grass, trembling, watching their mother's every move. She could hear the sharp intake of breath from one, the panicked thumps of paws against the dirt, the tiny cries pleading for protection. Her muscles coiled, ready to spring, to strike, to shield. Survival demanded every ounce of focus, every fragment of courage. The gorilla lunged again, fists swinging with terrifying speed, and the mother tiger responded in perfect counterbalance. She dodged, twisting her body with feline grace, her claws raking along the dirt in sharp arcs. The cub trapped near the intruder's massive form whimpered, caught between panic and the instinct to flee. The mother's roar echoed, a sound of fury and warning, shaking the leaves of the acacia trees and carrying across the golden savanna. Dust swirled around them, catching in the sunlight in swirling golden clouds. Every movement, every dodge, every leap was measured, tense, the weight of desperation pressing against her ribs like stone. The cub wriggled, small and vulnerable, pinned beneath the shadow of the gorilla's enormous body. The mother's heart pounded in her chest, a drum of fury and fear. She inched forward, muscles taut, eyes never leaving the intruder. Calculating. The gorilla swung again, and she darted to the side, teeth flashing, claws scraping against bark and dirt, startling the massive creature. In that moment, her cub found a tiny window, wriggling free and bounding towards safer grass. But the danger had not passed. The gorilla recovered instantly, swinging its fists in a terrifying arc, its growls deep and thunderous, resonating through the air like distant drums. The mother circled, keeping herself between the cubs and the predator, each breath measured, each step deliberate. Her instincts guided her movements, muscles flexing and coiling for the inevitable clash. The cubs clung to the edges of the tall grass, hiding yet trusting their mother's protection. Dust rose around the combatants, shimmering in the late afternoon sunlight, turning the fight into a strange, almost magical ballet of survival. Every step, every sound, every heartbeat was stretched taut, the tension unbearable yet beautifully alive. The gorilla's chest heaved with effort, its fists pounding, but the mother tiger met each motion with calm, calculated fury. For a moment, it seemed the gorilla might overtake her. One cub stumbled again, and panic surged through the mother, sharp and immediate. She lunged with a precision born of desperation, striking at the gorilla's arm with teeth and claws, not to injure, but to distract. The gorilla roared, stumbling back slightly, surprise flashing in its eyes. That moment was all she needed. The cub scrambled, small paws digging into the dirt, and vanished into the safer tall grasses behind her. She followed closely, circling back to ensure no other danger approached, muscles still coiled, ears flicking, eyes darting to the shadowed forest. The wind shifted, carrying the musky scent of the gorilla through the air, mixing with the earthy smell of the savanna. The cub's small eyes watched her closely, reflecting both terror and trust. She nudged them forward, whispering with the softest sounds only a mother could make, urging them towards safety without breaking the rhythm of her defense. The gorilla hesitated, massive frame frozen, eyes locking with hers, sensing the unwavering resolve behind her amber gaze. The tension stretched thin, every second a fragile thread holding life and death in balance. Finally, with one last powerful swing that missed its mark, the gorilla seemed to recognize her strength, her unyielding courage, and it took a slow step back. Dust floated down from the disturbed grass, sunlight catching in golden sparks as if the savanna itself were exhaling. The cubs huddled together, trembling but alive, and she kept circling, ensuring the threat had fully passed. Her body was tense, muscles quivering from the effort, but her eyes never left the forest edge. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the faintest echo of the gorilla's retreating growl. The golden light softened as the sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across the savanna floor. The mother tiger gathered her cubs close, nuzzling and licking them to check for injury, murmuring reassurance in soft, rumbling growls. Her heart still raced, every sense alert, yet relief was beginning to seep in like slow, warm sunlight. The cubs pressed against her, seeking comfort and warmth, while the mother allowed herself a small moment to breathe. The savanna settled again, birds cautiously returning to their branches, the wind drifting gently through the acacia trees. The mother tiger's eyes lingered on the forest edge, amber gaze sharp and unyielding. She had faced impossible odds and had won, but she knew the wild would never forgive carelessness. Peace had returned, for now, fragile and fleeting, like the last golden rays of sunset brushing the tall grasses. Her cubs nuzzled her side, small bodies pressing close, trusting her completely. And as the dust settled and the shadows deepened, the mother tiger remained vigilant, a living shield for the innocence of her young, ready for whatever the wilderness might bring next. The savanna breathed quietly around them, a mixture of calm and lingering tension, a reminder that in the wild, safety is never guaranteed, and courage is measured not in size, but in the heart. The dust hung thick in the air, golden motes swirling in the late afternoon light as the mother tiger crouched low, eyes fixed on the massive gorilla before her. For a moment, the world seemed frozen, the tense standoff stretched to its limit. Then, with a sudden surge of instinctive power, she lunged. Her muscles coiled like springs, her claws slashing the dry earth in precise arcs. The gorilla roared, swinging its fists, but her movement was fluid, impossible to predict. With a deft twist and an unyielding stare, she forced the massive intruder backward, step by heavy step, until the gorilla stumbled, unbalanced by her sudden and fearless aggression. The sheer determination in her amber eyes was enough to make the gorilla hesitate, a primal understanding passing between the two. This was not a prey to be trifled with, but a protector fueled by the fiercest of maternal instincts. The cubs, huddled in the tall grass just meters away, watched with wide eyes, trembling as the tension slowly began to break. Each paw that touched the earth again carried the promise of survival, the rhythm of hope returning to the savanna. The mother circled, always between her cubs and the lingering threat, her every movement calculated to keep them safe. Dust still hung in the air, and the sunlight flickered across the golden grass, painting the scene in streaks of light and shadow. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the gorilla took a step back, its chest heaving, dark eyes flicking toward the cubs with a look that seemed more contemplative than aggressive. There was no malice left in that gaze, only the quiet acknowledgement of a battle fought and survived. The cubs took tentative steps toward their mother, tiny bodies shaking but guided by, ready for whatever the wilderness might bring next. The savanna breathed quietly around them, a mixture of calm and lingering tension, a reminder that in the wild, safety is never guaranteed, and courage is measured not in size, but in the heart. The dust hung thick in the air, golden motes swirling in the late afternoon light as the mother tiger crouched low, eyes fixed on the massive gorilla before her. For a moment, the world seemed frozen, the tense standoff stretched to its limit. Then, with a sudden surge of instinctive power, she lunged. Her muscles coiled like springs, her claws slashing the dry earth in precise arcs. The gorilla roared, swinging its fists, but her movement was fluid, impossible to predict. With a deft twist and an unyielding stare, she forced the massive intruder backward, step by heavy step, until the gorilla stumbled, unbalanced by her sudden and fearless aggression. The sheer determination in her amber eyes was enough to make the gorilla hesitate, a primal understanding passing between the two. This was not a prey to be trifled with, but a protector fueled by the fiercest of maternal instincts. The cubs, huddled in the tall grass just meters away, watched with wide eyes, trembling as the tension slowly began to break. Each paw that touched the earth again carried the promise of survival, the rhythm of hope returning to the savanna. The mother circled, always between her cubs and the lingering threat, her every movement calculated to keep them safe. Dust still hung in the air, and the sunlight flickered across the golden grass, painting the scene in streaks of light and shadow. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the gorilla took a step back, its chest heaving, dark eyes flicking toward the cubs with a look that seemed more contemplative than aggressive. There was no malice left in that gaze, only the quiet acknowledgement of a battle fought and survived. The cubs took tentative steps toward their mother, tiny bodies shaking but guided by sweep, instinct and trust. She nuzzled them gently, each lick and press of her muzzle a reassurance that the danger had passed, for now. Their fur, dusted with golden grains from the tussle, shimmered in the light, and their eyes, wide and still wary, reflected the bond they shared with the mother who had risked everything for them. The wind stirred the tall grasses, carrying with it the scent of earth, sweat, and survival. Even the birds, once frightened into silence, returned cautiously to the branches above, their songs soft and tentative, weaving through the lingering tension. The gorilla lingered at the edge of the clearing, massive form still tense. Yet there was a change in posture, a subtle shift that suggested an understanding beyond human explanation. It gave a long, low grunt, almost like a farewell, and its eyes met the mother tiger's one last time. There was a flicker of recognition, a silent agreement that this family, small and vulnerable yet fierce in heart, would remain unchallenged. Then, slowly, it turned, moving back into the shadows of the forest from which it had come, its powerful form melting into the dark greens and browns. The mother's muscles remained coiled even as the gorilla retreated, her gaze following it until it disappeared entirely. Only then did the tension in her body release slightly, a shiver of relief passing through her. The cubs clustered around her, pressing close as if to absorb every ounce of her strength. She nudged them gently, guiding them through the remaining dust and debris of the confrontation. Their small paws stirred the earth as they followed her lead, tentative at first, then with growing confidence as the threat faded. The golden light returned fully to the savanna, bathing the grasses, trees, and mother tiger in warm hues, restoring the calm and beauty that had been shattered. She paused on a small rise, her eyes sweeping the horizon, muscles still alert, yet the tension had eased. The battle was over, and survival had been claimed through courage, speed, and unshakable instinct. In that quiet moment, a soft wind whispered through the acacia trees, lifting dust from the ground and carrying the faint scent of the gorilla away. The cubs rolled in the grass, testing their limbs, stretching, and then tumbling into each other in playful relief, their small voices tentative yet filled with joy. The mother remained close, amber eyes scanning for any hidden threat, tail flicking in subtle rhythm. Every nuzzle, every lick, every careful touch reminded the cubs of the bond they shared, a bond forged not in comfort alone, but in the fires of danger and the lessons of survival. The air seemed to breathe around them, the savanna itself offering a quiet sigh of reprieve. The mother tiger lifted her head, nostrils flaring gently as she inhaled the scent of the land, earth, grass, dust, and distant water. The cubs pressed close, nuzzling her side, their small bodies alive with both exhaustion and excitement. She let her tail sweep across the dusted grass, eyes lingering on the horizon where shadows of trees stretched long and golden. In this aftermath, there was reflection in every movement, a sense that survival was more than strength. It was courage, determination, and an unwavering will to protect. Even the gorilla, once a formidable threat, had retreated under the weight of her fierce determination, leaving an unspoken acknowledgement of the lines that exist between predator and protector, between fear and respect. As the light softened and the sun dipped lower, the mother led her cubs to a safer patch of grass near a small grove of acacia trees. The shadows grew long, stretching across the savanna, yet there was warmth in the fading glow. She lay down carefully, nudging each cub into the shelter of her body, creating a small, safe circle of fur and warmth. The cubs pressed close, small bodies trembling less with fear and more with relief. The wind whispered through the grasses, carrying with it the lessons of the day, the knowledge that courage could bend even the most overwhelming odds, and that the bond of family was a force beyond measure. From the distance, The faint calls of other wildlife returned to the air, birds, insects, and small mammals cautiously emerging from hiding. The jungle, harsh and unpredictable, had tested them, yet the tiger family remained intact. The mother's gaze swept slowly across the savanna, taking in a landscape she had fought to protect. Each shadow, each movement in the grass, reminded her of the fragility and beauty of life. Her cubs nestled close, finally allowing their bodies to relax, their trust absolute. And as the sun sank, painting the sky in gold and amber streaks, the mother tiger lifted her head one last time, eyes soft but alert, a silent guardian over the wild and the lessons it demanded. The scene held a quiet moral, subtle yet profound. Bravery is not measured only in strength or size, but in the heart that refuses to yield when the world threatens to overwhelm. The cubs lay nestled against her, safe under her vigilant presence, while the jungle itself seemed to exhale, a moment of calm after chaos, of reflection after courage. The mother tiger had fought not just for survival, but for the trust and lives of her young. In the golden light of evening, with shadows stretching and wind whispering through the tall grasses, the savanna felt alive once again, both beautiful and unforgiving, a stage for courage, survival, and the quiet, enduring truths of the wild.